going to bring in our fuel expert here, Zach Richardson, because it's his birthday.
My leg fell asleep over there.
I started by asking the Copilot to understand how the blog's been performing and growing over time. And the way I did that was by uploading a bunch of screen grabs of analytics dashboards. So I uploaded analytics from Squarespace and from GA4 and a number of other dashboards that I have. I did just screen grabs of my computer, super easy. Exported some stuff into a PDF from GA4, but a lot of it was just screen grabs, including like affiliate marketing data from Amazon. It was able to read all of that, all the numbers, all the graphs, and spit back to me a pretty solid summary of how the blog was performing over time, a lot of statistics, the top, performing content, seasonal patterns, all of that stuff. And now it kind of understands that component. So I'm basically having the Copilot act as a data analyst, which is not something that I'm great at.
I feel like most folks might lean towards initially like taking that data and trying to turn that into text themselves and type all that in. The fact that you can just give it a screenshot or give it an export of an image and it can just understand that is super cool.
What about like as a developer? I feel like when I see developers, there's like a lot of dashboards that
15 monitors up at once.
Yeah.
Well, so because when you're working on stuff, usually there's lots of components, right? LLMs sometimes struggle. I mean, if you've got one baked into a tool, it only has context of what you're looking at, right? Or if I'm using a chat interface, I have to keep on adding context. I needed an LLM to answer a question for me that involved like 3 different pieces of context. Like it needed information from Jira, information from a README, information about a command line tool. Well, I just pulled up on my screen the Jira instance, the docs, and then I just got like the man page of the command line tool, took a screenshot, and I was like, hey, can you use this tool to make API calls to this Jira instance that will be in the right format for this other thing that I'm doing? And it just figured it out.
The way in which we're able to do that with the LLM is something called tool calling. So image analysis is one of the tools that our copilots have access to. And what happens when you upload an image where you give a prompt to the LLM is that it runs what's called a Planner-Executor model. So it plans out the steps that it needs to perform, such as analyze the image and then come up with an analysis of, can that, based on that image and the information extracted from that, the prompt is, can these APIs talk to each other? And then it executes that plan in steps. So it's able to perform much more complex prompts.
Cool. So then once the Copilot had that information, it's like, all right, now that you've seen the historical growth of performance, I want you to act as a strategist, essentially come up with a comprehensive plan for the next year to help me, increase traffic, increase conversions, all the things that we want, right? And it gives me the 12-month plan, and I asked it to double click on November and really build that out as sort of a time management tactical strategy. This is the kind of thing that a lot of people are using LLMs for already, but just being able to kind of hop back and forth was helpful with all the data context.
Well, one thing that I saw there that you're using that I think is cool, and this is relatively new, that reasoning bit, right? You were showing off all the different options we could turn on earlier, and I think some folks might wonder, like, why wouldn't I just turn everything on? And this is where, in this case, we're asking for like kind of a grand strategy, giving all these different components, what should I do next? And that's where it doing some kind of like internal thinking might end up with a better answer. So this will be slower though, right? Like it's going to do some work internally before answering your question. If I'm just trying to summarize data or find the biggest number or sort or restructure, I don't really want that advanced reasoning because I just wanted to just quickly do the thing. But in this case, we wanted to be considering a lot more and kind of being more insightful with itself. And so here, like we don't have to do chain of thought prompting. It's kind of doing that itself. It's slower, but for our use case, that's what we want.
The Planner-Executor in a lot of cases replaces that chain of thought prompting and can do it more efficiently or do it with more complex queries than because it's able to come up with the entire plan ahead of time and then execute that plan, as opposed to chain of thought, which is more like, okay, I do this and then I, get that result, do this next thing, and so on and so forth.
And it's so funny how the guidance for this stuff changes so fast, because like coming up with a good prompt, for a long time, the chain of thought thing was this is what you do. And now we just have the ability to like, no, don't worry about it. The robots have it.
I needed to add a section to the site that I didn't have a simple way of doing that in the Squarespace interface. I didn't know how to do it. I'm not like an HTML coder, and I asked it to create some HTML code and essentially do some technical work for me to produce that code, which is great, and we know that it can do that. But then it kind of wasn't working well in terms of how to implement it. I'm not super functional with this, so I was trying to figure out where to put everything, and something was going wrong. So again, I tried to use the image analysis tool and started taking screen grabs, and I was like, that's not working. Here's what I said. I was trying to explain it at first, why it's not working. But then I was just like, here's what I see. Here's what I'm looking at. It's kind of different from what you're telling me. I think specifically because it was the Copilot was looking at a previous version of Squarespace. So I started just taking screen grabs of what I was looking at and being like, here's what I see, fix it.
Right.
Explain to me how to fix it. And it looks at that and it analyzes, oh, okay, I get it. Here's what you do. And it just starts spitting back these answers and essentially serving as a personal customer service rep for Squarespace.
Right.
I don't know where I would have gone for this information otherwise. I'm not going to call Squarespace and have them talk to me for 2 hours about how to, tweak this one section of my website. But by just adding screen grabs, it can understand where I'm at and where I'm having problems and tell me exactly what to click and where to go. Kind of like when I have to talk my parents through how to use Microsoft.
No, it's talking you through it.
I know. I feel very old.
That's so cool though, right? Like I had a similar experience where I was using a video editing tool. Those things always look like a commercial airliner, cockpit where there's like a million buttons and stuff. And I wanted to split a clip or something and I couldn't figure it out. And eventually I just kind of was like, well, I'll just give up. Here's a picture, figure it out for me. And it was able to tell me, hey, you'll see this menu option here, click that. You can get frustrated with if it doesn't initially get your question right. But what you're showing me here is there's many ways to give it more context, right? Just in this case, just give it the image, give it exactly what you see, and then it can help you.
Yeah, and I found it to be way more accurate once it was looking at something than when I was just using text to explain what I was trying to do. So I don't know, that component seems like a pretty big unlock, being able to use it as a personal customer service rep or tech support for things that you're not naturally skilled at.
The vision component for sure, and you can imagine as a customer service rep being able to screen grab exactly what you did, screen grab what you're seeing on the desktop, share it with the customer service rep, or share it with your Copilot yourself. But exchanging that visual information, now that we have that with the LLMs, is really powerful.